After over a week of anticipation, the New York Jets finally have their offensive coordinator. It was clear it was going to be Frank Reich. It was just waiting it out. And finally, the Jets have their offensive coordinator. They have their defensive coordinator. And now we will look at how they will fill out the staff. They've made another staff addition within the last hour. We'll get to that. My thoughts on the impact of this hire and, of course, how it will impact this offseason, all that and much more. But a friendly reminder, if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of our live streams. You can check us out wherever podcasts are available on any podcasting platform, and you can check us out on social media using the handle @RichSportsTalk. And you can go check out our community section. Again, we like to give feedback with you guys. We currently have a poll up where you can grade the Frank Reich hiring. So let's get right into it with Frank Reich. And look, I'll be honest, if you were to tell me this a couple weeks ago, I would be fine with this. The problem with the Jets is the process of how we got here. And I'll be frank, I don't think Jet fans would have been excited with Aaron Glenn coming back. But if I was to tell you at the end of the season that Aaron Glenn would decide to call the plays, would bring in a young defensive coordinator that he's had a relationship with to work with him, and on top of that, they would hire Frank Reich to be the OC, I think many Jet fans would go, okay, that's fine. And again, I was kind of hoping Frank Reich would be brought in as an assistant to help Tanner Engstrom. I also said Tanner Engstrom, you would tell how good of a candidate he would be literally within 72 hours with the Falcons. But I think that this at least raises the floor for the offensive coordinator position. You have someone that has called plays before. Again, it's hard to fully judge this until the staff is fully picked out. I'm hoping, like many of us are, who the coaching staff will be filled on the offensive side. I'll get to that in a little bit. But overall, I think Frank Reich tells you what direction this team's going to go this offseason. I think it puts one of the rumors that came up earlier this week to bed. But look, Frank Reich, from with all understanding, great teacher, really works well with quarterbacks, even ones he didn't want with Bryce Young, who actually was asked about working with Frank Reich. And we know the disaster down in Carolina. The owner wanted them one quarterback when Frank Reich wanted C.J. Stroud. And again, make sure to put your comments and reaction to the hiring in the chat, super chat, to jump to the front of the line. Aaron Glenn with the statement on Frank Reich. Frank has a rare combination of experience, creativity, and calm under pressure. He's lived this game from every angle as a quarterback in this league and as a coach who's led the offenses at the highest level. He's unique in his ability to see the game for what it is right now and adapt when appropriate. Frank understands offense and how to utilize the strengths of players. I'm looking forward to how he will help this team have success. And I think that this weirdly is the best combination the Jets are getting. And look, when you look at the names, when you look at Aaron Glenn retaining his job, I think that this was the best choice. I'd rather have this. And I don't have a problem with Tanner Engstrom, but I feel better about Frank Reich and this combination than Wink Martindale being the big hire on the defensive side. And with Frank Reich, this is someone that, again, has been at the college level. There's a lot of pros and cons. I'll start with the cons because, again, I want to finish on some positive with Frank Reich. So here are the couple cons I have with this hiring. Number one is the age. He's starting to get up there, even announced that he was retired, came out of retirement to help Andrew Luck at Stanford. And that old phrase, if you're thinking about retiring, you're already kind of out of the game. And I do think he is coming back because it's clear Aaron Glenn's a good friend of his. They both were on the Jets when they were in their strugglings. So I think he's looking to help Aaron Glenn. I think if you look at the offense production, it has started to go downhill in recent years. I think there's a reason why other people weren't knocking at the door of Frank Reich to bring him in. I'm curious about his concepts. I hope his concepts have evolved from being at the college level and getting some new experience down there. And the other thing, too, is I'm just not sure he's going to be able to call plays. This is someone that has not called plays since 2023, and the Jets brought in another older school coach and Steve Wilkes to do the defense, and we saw how that poorly went. But here's what I'll say about the pros. It's someone that's had the experience, someone that's had the experience of the game flow. And the one thing that sticks out to me is the quarterbacks Frank Reich has had to work with. And when you look at his career, you look at the quarterbacks. He went to Indianapolis the first time around to work with Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck, after one season, decides to basically retire. Then he has to work with Matt Ryan, who was at that point out of gas, Philip Rivers. And I thought he worked pretty well. Then he goes to Philadelphia. Carson Wentz has an MVP season under him. And Nick Foles was in a position to win a Super Bowl, get a lot of money, and was never the same after leaving Frank Reich. And I'm curious to see what would have happened in Carolina with a more patient owner and allowing him to pick the quarterback. So the big reason why I have some optimism for Frank Reich is because I think the Jets have tipped their hand. They're taking a quarterback. When in the draft, I'm not sure. But you don't bring in Frank Reich if you're not planning on what I think the plan is bringing in a veteran bridge. There's a couple of options, of course. Jacoby Brissett has played under Reich, was successful in Indianapolis. That would have to be via trade with the Cardinals. The other one, free agent, would be Kirk Cousins. Again, he's never played, but has a good relationship. The only thing I would advise with Kirk Cousins, though, and I keep seeing that name thrown around, don't forget Kirk Cousins was offered more money by the Jets and he chose the Vikings. And I'm curious if ownership's going to remember that. So that would be a curious reunion. The other thing I would also say is I saw the rumor about Kyler Murray this week, and I almost would think the Kyler Murray rumor would be dead. Now, again, anything can happen. We've seen with this franchise time and time again, crazier things have happened around this organization. And what I would say is you have to give this coach a little bit of time. You have to see if he can talk with a young quarterback. And I'm, I guess, excited to see what Frank Reich can do with a young quarterback. I at least feel like at least I have an adult in the room, which to me is a huge difference now. Like, for how many years have we been looking? Can we just get some adults in the room? People who have done the job. Now, I know the counter to this is going to be, well, Frank Reich hasn't really done the job very well in recent years and hasn't been in the National Football League for a couple of years. But this is someone that does have a track record. This is someone that has been a quarterback. And I think it's important when, especially if this team's going to draft a quarterback at some point, that you have someone that understands the language, that can diagnose blitzes, that can point out the Mike linebacker in a set. To me, that is very important. And the Jets, I do think, are going to draft a quarterback. And I do think, unfortunately, I do think it's going to be with one of the top 44 picks. I just feel like the Jets are at a point right now. Aaron Glenn understands he's on a hot seat. And I do think that if there was any involvement from Woody, it was making a suggestion to call the defense and getting someone to run the offense. And that's what it seems like it's going to do. I think this will be better for Aaron Glenn, and Glenn, let's see what he can do defensively. But what's going to save Aaron Glenn's job and this regime's job is not Aaron Glenn miraculously turning this into a top, let's even say 15 defense in an offseason. You know, statistically, that'll be great. It'll be something to talk about. But we've all seen the Jets have great defense before. We've seen under Robert Saleh have a top 5 unit and not be able to win more than 7 games. The only way I can see this regime long-term keeping their job is having a veteran bridge come in and ease a young quarterback into the situation. The problem is there isn't really a great option. I do think that the Jets will explore the quarterback position. The question will be, is it Nussmeier round 2, maybe trade back, get an extra pick in round 2 or 3 and take him there? And I also think Ty Simpson is very much in play for this organization because the way this team keeps their job, because this team is not, even if they have a great offseason, even if they have a great draft, their schedule's brutal. They have probably going to win at the most 6 or 7 games next year. But then the question is, how do you keep your job after a 6 or 7 win season? I think that the way they do that is by having a young quarterback trending upward. And I'll even throw this out there this early in the process. There is a scenario, and a lot of Jet fans might not like it, and I understand why. But there is a very easy scenario that I could see playing out on draft night. Pick number 2, they pick Carnell Tate, or they take a receiver, or they even take Ty Simpson just to guarantee they get him. And then they take the best receiver available at 16, whether it's a Mekhi Lemon, a Carnell Tate, a Jordan Tyson. And I understand that Jets fans will look at it and go, well, what are we doing? We need defensive players and we're passing on them. I do think it would be curious because if the Jets have a good offense next year, Frank Reich can help develop a young quarterback, like let's say Ty Simpson. We get to the end of the next season, Jets win 6 or 7 games, but we see Ty Simpson look like Jackson Dart, for example, finishes the season strong. We feel we have a good quarterback. It's easier to sell this fan base and this ownership that, hey, we got the quarterback. It gets easier because now we have 3 picks in a loaded draft. If we have a spot in the draft where a team is coveting a quarterback, we're going to get an absolute haul. We're just a couple pieces away. Because I'll say this, the Jets could have a top 10 defense this year. If they don't score points, if they don't have a quarterback, if they look hopeless at the position, this regime's not keeping their job. Let's just say it as it is. And there might be a plan. Maybe they go after someone like Tyson. Like, I think Ty Simpson is going to be a name that is going to get moved up just because he's going to have a great pre-draft process. They're going to find him incredibly likable. They're going to find him as someone that players like to play for. They're going to find that this draft too. And don't forget, you look at this team and you look at the teams behind them. There's a world where the Steelers decide, you know what, we'll jump up to 15 to take Ty Simpson because we think it's a 2 quarterback draft or a 1.5 quarterback draft. Whatever you think. And the thing too is I do think the plan is that they will go out there and get a veteran bridge. I do think that you will see a veteran bridge come in, whether it's a Kirk Cousins, a Jacoby Brissett, because the Jets in the past have not done that plan and it is blown up in their face. They gave the keys to Zach Wilson and he drove the car into a tree. They gave it to Sam Darnold and Sam wasn't ready. One of the biggest things that I had a gripe with that offseason was you brought in Teddy Bridgewater. And Teddy Bridgewater, even at that time, you thought, okay, this is someone that, when healthy, is one of the 32 starters in this league. And they basically gave it to Sam Darnold. And look, Sam had flashes early, but it was clear by the midseason he wasn't ready. And the Jets traded Teddy Bridgewater, if you remember, during that training camp for a 3rd-round pick. And I remember saying at the time, this move doesn't make sense because, number one, you're trading someone that could be your starter and ease Sam Darnold. But number 2, what if you have a situation like the quote-unquote seeing ghost game? You need a veteran presence to talk to the young quarterback and help guide him through this situation. And you look like there were signs during that rookie year. There were, but there's also some downturns too. But it would have been nice, I think, to have someone like Teddy Bridgewater to be there and support. Another bit of news that we just found out is a former Jets staffer is coming back, Carl Dunbar, who was a D-line coach under Rex, was also with the Steelers from 2015 to 2018, has been signed by the Jets for the defensive line coach. Again, we'll see who else they pick off. And to me, I feel like this is almost a bit incomplete at this moment. Because to me, for this to feel really good, you feel like if you could get a combination of Greg Roman and Darrell Bevel in here, if you could get all 3, Jet fans, I think, would be feeling better having Bevel like be the quarterback coach or the pass game coordinator and Greg Roman. Look, to me, the big one's Greg Roman because Greg Roman, I understand he does not have great passing games, but he is probably one of the top 5 run designers in the NFL, and you hear what Aaron Glenn wants to do. You know the Jets want to run the football. And the strength of this team right now is the offensive line. If they're going to compete, they're going to be running the football down people's throats next year. Why not bring in Greg Roman to be the run game coordinator? And Greg Roman, it's a good opportunity for him to have a great offensive line, have a great season with the Jets. Maybe it elevates his career as well. The big thing I'd also look for, too, is with Roman, this would be a great opportunity for Breece Hall. This would be a great opportunity for any running back that the Jets have. Like, that to me is if they can get 2 of the 3 or 3 of the 3, you'd feel a little bit better. And look, part of this too, I understand. There's a lot of Jet fans, and I understand where they're coming from. This will not move the needle. And again, did it move my needle a lot? No. It just felt like they were making the smart decision or the logical one in front of them for once. But the thing that bothers Jet fans is the path that it took to get here, how long-winded it was, and how crazy and ridiculous between the 8 coaches, and you hire the 9th one off of a Zoom for the DC. You have Wink in the building, but then you let him go. Then you have Tanner Angstrom, but you're going to reduce his role and then bring in Frank Reich. And again, to Tanner's credit, I get where Tanner's looking. He's like, why am I going to be the OC but not have the title? So I think that the Jets have gone into a place where I feel more confident with the offensive staff just because, again, you have a professional that's done this before. Like, how many times has the Jets tried the first time play caller, the first time offensive coordinator? And it's a learning curve. You have great defensive minds it takes a while to get into the offensive flow. And you've also had a lot of guys that have been mostly coaching the coordinator. You actually have someone that was a former quarterback and can diagnose how he processes the game and sees the field and be cerebral in helping develop a young quarterback, whether that is a Ty Simpson, whether that is a Nussmeier, or whether it's another quarterback that we haven't mentioned. I think that the Jets have laid out the plan. And while I understand many people are just like, you know what, I just want to skip to 2027. I get it. I understand. But I do think there's a scenario now, too, where it's clear that the offense is a priority. And I'll say it again. I can see a draft scenario, especially depending on how free agency goes. If the Jets fill up a lot of the holes on defense, and I would say especially if they're able to add some good depth pieces, especially on the defensive line, if they can get a nice situational third down pass rusher, a run-stopping defensive end for certain situations, maybe then it turns into they just take Simpson at 2 and then take the best receiver at 16. Because to keep their jobs, they're going to have to score points. I think Aaron Glenn realizes this offense has to be competitive. This offense has to score points. This has to be a team that this fan base is excited to watch. And as great as defenses can be, we all know offense sells games. Offense sells tickets. And the Jets offense, one of the reasons they've been in this 15-year skid is because of the poor offensive, the lack of development coaches. And look, I think the Dunbar hire is an underrated sign. He's had top 5 running defenses under him where the Jets were not great. I think that with Dunbar, it's also someone that's worked with the Jets before, which is nice to bring him back. But I understand that if the fan base aren't excited by these moves, I get it. I understand why people feel the way they do and why people are talking about this franchise the way they are. But overall, I think it just raises the floor. And hopefully they can add more to the staff. I'm hoping that we can see Frank Reich add a Greg Roman, add a Darrell Bevel. Who knows? Maybe both. Like, invest in the offensive line. And look, let's get to some of your questions. Sands was not the only ready, but regressed with the Jet staff. Yeah, Kev, it's clear that he did. And I get this argument, keep it simple. But here's the thing. And like I've said before, let's say hypothetically they go your route. Let's say they take an Arvell Reese at 2, they'll take a receiver at 16, and they'll take the best available defensive players, 33, 44. Let's say like a defensive tackle or a linebacker at 33, and then a safety at 44. Aaron Glenn turns the defense somewhat respectably around. Again, you're bracing the Titanic at this point. Like, let's say he gets into the middle of the pack. They're 15th or 16th defense. The turnovers are better. The defense improves. But the offense is unwatchable. It's stagnant because they're running with Kirk Cousins. They don't have a legitimate number 2 behind Garrett. Like, they're not able to recruit offensively on that side of the ball. Even if you win 6 or 7 games, I think that gets you fired. What keeps your job is if you get a young quarterback and you're able to put pieces around him. Like, Joe Shane has a job because of Jackson Dart. The reason John Harbaugh went to the Giants is because they have a quarterback. When you have a quarterback, or the notion that you have the quarterback, it makes your life so much easier. And again, I just don't see a scenario where a team is going to come up to number 2. I look at the draft order right now with where the Jets are, and I just don't see a team jumping Arizona unless Arizona, we find out that old friend of the Jets, their new offensive coordinator, basically decides, you know what? I need a new quarterback. I don't like Kyler Murray. We're jesting him, but I like Ty Simpson. So, okay, you got all these picks. Now you're sitting there at 6. The second best quarterback in the draft is off the board. And now you're stuck with, oh, do we Garrett Nussmeier, I guess? You know, like I'm just throwing it out there as a possibility. Because the other thing, too, is it's clear Aaron Glenn knows he's coaching for his life. He understands that the Jets are not in a good situation. What is more sellable to Woody? Like, you tell me. Hey, Woody, the defense got a lot better. We played really well. We're on the uptick. We got some great pieces, but hey, we still don't have a quarterback. We couldn't score points. Frank Reich, I thought it would work, but give us a chance to draft a quarterback next year. Woody's probably going to sit there and go, well, okay, I'm going to go out there because this is an attractive job with all these picks and in this quarterback class. I'm going to find an offensive-minded coach. Or let's say Darren Muji has a great draft, but this defense underperforms or this team looks terrible and Aaron Glenn still looks over his head as a head coach. There might be a world where Woody goes, well, I like Darren Muji. He's picked a really good roster. I'm going to let him keep his job and pick a coach. And what his old roommate, Kevin O'Connell, says, hey, I'm coming to New York to work with a young quarterback. That could easily be a situation next year. Like, that could be a scenario. The only way I think Glenn realistically keeps his job at 6 and 7 is, hey, Woody, look, I know it was a rough season, but hey, we got Ty Simpson. We slow developed him. We put him in. You look at his 8 games. He got progressively better. He is our guy. And now we're in a loaded draft where if we use these 3 picks on defense to fill out this roster, we're going to be a really damn good team next year. Like, what is the better selling point? Like, that's how I think that Aaron Glenn's going to approach this situation. All right, Kev, what second-year coach has been successful after office? None. It was Hugh Jackson who went from 1-15 to 0-16. Glenn knows he's in danger. Fear he's going to mortgage the future. I would say, realistically, if they're going to mortgage anything, it's going to be the cap. I think that they'll be more aggressive in free agency. I don't see them burning future capital. I don't see the Raiders moving off of Mendoza. Again, look at who they just hired. I mean, the Kubiak's not taking that job if he's not picking the quarterback. I think that was one of the coaches I was actually holding out for next year, hoping, hey, I hope he stays another year in Seattle. But I think it's pretty locked in. They're taking a quarterback at number 1. Now the big problem is, what do you do at number 2? And once again, there's not that like bona fide Abdul Carter like last year, one of those players at the top. You're like, there's going to be a market for a player to come up there. And now all of a sudden, like, you look at number 3, do the Cardinals maybe get into the quarterback market just because, again, they have an offensive-minded coach? Maybe our former friend is going to see he likes Ty Simpson a lot, knows he's going to get a long runway in Arizona. I mean, I also think, too, this move also eliminates Kyler Murray because you see Frank Reich likes more traditional stand-up pocket quarterbacks, again, with athleticism. But I think Kyler Murray also would not have been a good fit with this head coach. I would say this, if the Jets do add Kyler Murray, that's either a Muji or that is a Woody Johnson move. I don't think Frank Reich and I don't think Aaron Glenn are going to be the ones beating down the door to get him. And look, this is a long process. I mean, we just got through the Senior Bowl. I mean, Garrett Nussmeier basically now is, the toast of the Senior Bowl. And again, it just shows you how weak this quarterback class is. And look, Trinidad's still figuring out that whole situation. I don't think Carson Beck is a great option. I mean, the dart throw I would take would be Drew Aller because of the physicality and the physical. But the issue with him, what the games I watched, and now you got the medical issue. I mean, this was a guy who was 64% completion. And you look in this draft right now, he would be close to the bottom. The only other one close is Sawyer Robertson, 60%. I mean, Drew Aller, like and look, I'd rather take the swing on the athleticism than a Garrett Nussmeier. I think Garrett Nussmeier is ceiling is a game manager, maybe a high-end backup. But I just look at this draft, and like I've said, it might not be likely, but there's a world where what if what if Frank Reich loves Ty Simpson? Like, this is basically, I feel like right now, what's going to happen over the next couple months is their job is going to be, hey, pick a quarterback you like in this class, and we will build a plan from there. If it's Ty Simpson, we'll figure out the plan round one. If it is Garrett Nussmeier, we'll figure out the plan. And, like, yeah, like, again, I'm just throwing it out there because, again, that connection, that's the connection. I mean, yeah, and I get it, Drones. Like, this is a move that, again, I think that the staff collectively is better than last year just because of the experience, but it's not a move that you're like, well, oh my God, I feel confident the Jets are so much better. It's basically, okay, at least we have another adult quote in the room and not a first-time play caller. But I understand it. Like, I really looked at it a couple weeks ago, and I said, the tone of this offense, the off season, I'm sorry, I'm struggling with my words tonight, is going to be set by the defensive coordinator. And the way that was handled with Wink, and even if they had Wink, I think a lot of Jet fans would still kind of shrug their shoulders like, oh, okay. I feel like the way it was with Wink was in the building. He leaves the building. Then they Zoom a guy. And then the next day, Duker is the DC. It just felt like the Jets were that old saying, ready, fire, aim. And it's just like they didn't have a plan. And even this plan, the plan was to have this offensive staff. Then a month later, they decide, well, we really want Frank Reich in here. We're gonna demote our current OC. He's gonna keep the title, but he's not gonna do play calling. He's like, I'm not sticking around for that. Like, I just look at this process. I think that is the biggest problem because Jet fans are incredibly low on Aaron Glenn, and we were looking for a process, and that is why the Jets have been rightfully so dragged through the mud. This has been a messy process. If I had told you before this process, the Jets said we've mutually come to the decision to move off of Tanner Engstrom. We want to thank him, but we want to get a veteran offensive play caller. Aaron Glenn will call plays on defense and will be hiring a defensive coordinator to assist him. And then a week later, they got Frank Reich. I think the process, you wouldn't feel much better, but at least you say, you know what? The Jets had a plan, they had a process, and they followed it. It just feels like how we got here with all the twists, turns, and inversions. It just feels like they didn't have a plan. And even if they say this was a plan, just their actions these last couple weeks, it's been hard as a fan base because we are looking as fans for any hope with Aaron Glenn. And many fans, and I understand, say, I don't see any hope. I just want a Madison to the end of 2026. Get me to January where we're talking about head coaches and these draft prospects. And you know what? I can understand where you're coming from if you're a fan and you feel like that. I totally understand where you are coming from, how you are feeling. But if you were someone that was hoping to get any gleam of this coaching staff, and look, it's still a long off season. I mean, we even haven't hit the draft. We haven't hit the combine. We haven't hit free agency. Like, that to me is the next big bar. Because Aaron Glenn, we wanted to see how respected, because one of the things we were sold, he was a great staff builder. And of course, they blow up the staff after 1 year. And he's a good recruiter. We're going to see, because the first off season of free agent recruiting didn't go great. And I'm kind of curious to see how they do this off season. Are they going to be able to get some big names? Are they going to be able, because we all know they're going to pay a Jets tax, because teams are going to look at the Jets and say, well, I'm not coming to you unless you pay me an obscene amount of money. But Aaron Glenn's got to be able to close the door on some of these negotiations. I don't think he's lost control. I think he's decided he wants to go down with the ship. And look, I think Bart Scott said it. And look, for a lot of people around the league, Like, I've been seeing a lot of different reporters. I've been seeing a lot of people covering the team, trying to like talk about the inside. Like, one of the few people, especially because I've talked to Bart in the industry, he is so ingrained with the Jets and he covers the Jets so well and he understands the building. And he even brought up a great point. If Woody wants good headlines with this team, Wink would have been a big headline. I think Aaron Glenn decided, you know what? This is getting out of hand. I need to call the defense. I think the one thing Woody was said is, and I get it from a businessman, and I brought it up on this show, and I understand people are going to disagree because he is a billionaire and just throw money until you solve the problem. But I do think he was thinking, well, hold on a sec. Wink's going to probably cost me $5 million. You also want to bring in Frank Reich for $5 million. They're probably going to want 2-3-year guaranteed contracts. I'm paying you $12 million. Like, Aaron, I'm giving you the opportunity to work out of this, but I think Woody's thinking internally, well, if Aaron clashes and burns, then I'm going to be on the hook for a head coach for 3 years and $12 million. I'm already on the hook for the OC and DC this upcoming season, but then I'm going to have 2 full years of dead high-end offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. I think the suggestion was call the plays, and I think Aaron Glenn's like, you know what, that's probably the best idea. So, and even like guys like Robert Saleh and some of them are like, look, I got away from it when I wasn't calling plays. So this team, again, this offseason, I understand we got here in Vinny Bad. I mean, this is what the offseason is about. F the pass, get our OC, move forward. And I get it. I just think the process to getting here, like, we didn't have to be on a roller coaster for a week and a half. It could have just been simple. It just feels really all over the place. Ooh, off topic from Keep It Simple RC. Again, super chat, jump to the front of the line if you want to make a donation to the channel. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our live streams throughout this incredible off season. Do you think LaFleur consulted his brother before hiring Hackett? Will he have success? I will say this about LaFleur. And again, I think that's another reason why the meddling has come up a lot too. We also have to remember with LaFleur, the reason they were pushing LaFleur out was because they were trying to bring in Aaron Rodgers. And I guarantee you Aaron Rodgers said, I'm not coming unless Nathaniel Hackett's coming. And we all know what happened there. I always like this with LaFleur. Of all these offensive minds we've seen come through the door, he had creative plays, and he had plays that other teams copied from the Jets. So it shows that he's an innovative mind. It takes a lot to make the jump from OC to head coach, but he's well-liked. And even internally, I thought it was interesting. Connor Hughes brought this up where I guess you hope he learns how to connect with players. I guess some players didn't like the way he treated them or was on them. And then they get Nathaniel Hackett. It's like, oh, God, we miss him. We shouldn't have been so hard and critical. I think you can see the big thing is who's his quarterback. Because I feel Arizona's moving off Kyler Murray. The question is the plan to try to get a quarterback next year? And this is why I also wouldn't rule out Ty Simpson at 3. I think LaFleur's going to have a long runway, and if he loves the quarterback, he's going to say, I can build around this. I need to find my quarterback. And I think a lot of it will be, I don't think he's hired a DC. I haven't seen anything. Let me know in the comments if he has. Again, I'm shocked that he brought Hackett in as his own OC. I just think it's ironic. The guy that replaced him in New York is his OC. I don't know how that's going to work. But that's a really good question. If no good coaches want to come to the Jets because they see a sinking ship, why would free agents be interested? And it's a good point, Kev. Like, they're going to have to overpay to just get them. And to me, the draft is going to be how this team improves, and not just the draft assets. I could see Darren Muji doing what he did last year, which he was good at, which was trades. I could see them, because they have multiple assets on day 3, deciding, instead of trying to take a risk on a dart throw, who we hope can make this roster, why don't we look at in-season tape, find a first or second year player where we have good financial control, who's proven he can have a role in this league, and we trade for that guy. I could see them making a move. Maybe it's a linebacker. Maybe it's a defensive end, although they tend to cost a higher premium. Maybe it's a safety that not a lot of people are talking about. And don't forget, we've also had 10 coaching changes. And one of the things that the 10 coaching changes means is they want their own people. They're going to have different systems. There's going to be guys that don't fit in certain systems that they might be looking to move off of that we're not even talking about at this point. So that's something to keep an eye on too. And I'm very interested to see um, how they do that. Again, I think players like Aaron Glenn. The hard part that Aaron Glenn, and this is, I guess, the one silver lining for him is he doesn't care what we think, what we say about him. And I don't think that will affect him in the slightest because I do think coaches like Saleh and other coaches, they want people to like them. They want the media to like them. The one thing that I think Aaron Glenn has overdone is talked how much they were going to coach up this team, and we saw massive regression. And then the other thing is when you're combative with the media, and this is something I brought up on my last show, and it is so important. And I understand that coaches don't like the media. They don't like talking. They don't like getting pressure. But we have to remember, and this is for all coaches, the media, yes, they have objectives. Yes, they want to try to create content. But they also are the voice of the fan bases because Rich Cimini, Connor Hughes, Zach Rosenblatt, whoever covers the Jets and is in that room with them, they're seeing on X, social media, in their own podcast, in their own mailbags, what fans are talking about, what fans care about, and would want to ask the coach. And 8 out of 10 times, that message, again, can be relayed in different ways, but they're trying to get a reaction and trying to have a bridge for the fan base. And when Aaron Glenn is just saying, basically, trust me, bro, I got this. I got a plan. We're all like, well, the first plan was horrible. It's like that meme, like come up with the plan, think of the plan, execute the plan, expect the plan to go off the rails, throw away the plan. And right now, like the full plan was, we're going to have Justin Fields play quarterback. Backfired horribly. We're going to have Steve Wilks call the defense because he's experienced. We didn't have an interception, which has never happened in NFL history. We're going to have Arian Smith become a dynamic receiver and show you that he can catch. I think he had 11 catches all season. And look, like even with Tanner Engstrom, like I don't think the offense, the big problem was they didn't have a professional quarterback to play. They didn't have anyone to play. And this team too, like by the end of the season, I just look at them and basically I just look at the way this season ended, and it just felt like this team was lifeless under Aaron Glenn. Like he kept saying, we want a team, this fan base can be proud. They're going to play hard. And again, maybe it's because they just knew they were playing with a practice squad quarterback that you have no chance. So it definitely will be, I think, very interesting to see how the Jets also fill out the staff. I think that's going to be a very important part of how this will work. I think it's very important to see what this defense is going to look like. And I do think it's interesting with the Carl Dunbar hiring. One of the big questions that keeps coming up with the Jets is what base they're going to be in. And I think you're going to see – and it's not the old NFL where you play so many snaps from a 3-4 base or a 4-3 base. There's so many hybrid fronts now. But I do think you're seeing the switch more to a 3-4, which means maybe Arvell Reese as an outside backer works. I think Will McDonald's an outside backer could work. I mean, look at the guys they brought. Juwan Briggs, massive human, played nose tackle. Harrison Phillips has played defensive end and nose tackle in a 3-4. I think you're going to see them add some massive bodies on this team. And you also look at the D-line coach, Carl Dunbar. What schemes did he work with? He worked with 3-4 defenses in both Pittsburgh under Rex Ryan here. So I think the Jets are kind of now, as we get this coaching staff together, is going to reveal their plan. Like if they bring in Greg Roman, there's still going to be a team that's going to want to run the football down your throat. And I think that's what Aaron Glenn wants. The problem was last year when you're down 21-0 in the first, you can't really be a run-first team. Greg Roman, according to Rappaport, even Rappaport's reporting that the Jets, because of the interview, saying he might be in there as well, that he might be considered for the run game coordinator. And I think that would be a really good hiring. And look, I just feel like the Jets have someone competent. And that's the one thing we want with this organization. Just be competent. Just be normal. Just be bad. Like just and look, there's skepticism. I understand that he's probably not going to be an innovative. He's probably not going to be outski some people. He's not going to be this incredibly innovative guy. But Frank Reich at least has experience calling plays. He understands the flow of the game. I think he's going to try to bring Roman to work on the run game. And the biggest thing is what they're telling you is they're going to bring in a veteran quarterback, Kirk Cousins or someone along that line, and they're going to draft a kid at some point. They're going to draft a kid, and that's one of the big reasons Frank Reich is here. He's a former quarterback. He's worked with young quarterbacks before. And I know people are going to say, well, Bryce Young didn't work out. He got 8 games with Bryce Young. And you look at Indianapolis, like he was basically giving corpses of people. He wasn't giving young quarterbacks. Like this will be an opportunity for him potentially to help find the Jets a quarterback. And I think right now they're going to, part of the plan is going to be determining the target that he wants to work with in this draft. If it's Ty Simpson, the Jets are probably going to have to get him in round 1. If it's Nussmeier, can you move back from 44 and get him in the 3rd round, pick up some assets? I mean, I think the plan is coming out a little bit, but I understand where people are at right now saying, yeah, I don't really feel great. He's not incredibly innovative. I would say this. I feel more confident in Frank Reich running a competent offense than I do in Aaron Glenn running a competent defense, which is also saying something too. And maybe this is part of the reason they brought him in. Maybe, let's say Aaron Glenn starts 0-7. I would feel a lot better if the Jets decide, you know what, we have a young quarterback, but Frank Reich is going to be the interim head coach because he's been a head coach for multiple years in the league. I mean, that's also something. And I guarantee you, like, if Aaron Glenn starts 0-5, how many chats am I going to get in this? But if we're in October and the Jets are 1-5, how many people just say, you know what, just fire Glenn. Just get us started the head coach and just let him be the interim. I mean, maybe that's a silver line. Cam Hayward on Jets defensive line coach Carl Dunbar in 2025. When you talk about Carl Dunbar, he's just an unbelievable teacher. He takes time to really help you study. I can definitely say that he helped me continue to grow my development as a player in person. He's constantly challenged us. You look at our group, he's all helped us achieve so much. What we do throughout the week and what you get in the game, it all stays consistent because he's so good. So I am curious to see Dunbar back. It's nice to have another familiar face. It's someone that's worked before. And again, I think it's also telling that I think you're going to see a lot more 3-4 from this. And I mean, it's been a crazy offseason just for Jet, not even Jet, but Giant coaches. If you were to tell us 6 months ago that Robert Saleh would not only be a head coach, but Brian Day will be the OC on his staff in Tennessee, and then Mike LaFleur would be a head coach, not only in Arizona, but Nathaniel Hackett would be the OC, the one that Robert Saleh picked to fire him in favor of. So I do think that the Jets, they still have to fill out the staff. They still have to add some veterans. And again, they have to address a lot of this in free agency. All right. Some more questions in the chat as well. Let's see. Kev Mosley. I mean, if Mosley wants to coach, I wouldn't mind bringing him back. I really think CJ would be a good coach, and this might be a good starting point for him if he wants to get into coaching. So I'd reach out to him. Do you predict any trades? That's interesting because they made one, but I could see that. I won't be surprised if I will say this. I think Quincy likely ends up down there or in Atlanta. I'm trying to think of a Robert Saleh player on this roster right now that he'd like. I mean, Jermaine, but I think you're getting pennies on the dollar for Jermaine, so I don't think it'd be worth the squeeze. I like the dynamicism of Will. I wouldn't give up on Will. I mean, the one player maybe is if this team gets Anzalone and they add some more linebackers and they like the depth of linebacker. Could Jamian Sherwood be a name? Because that's the player that Saleh drafted. He fits the style linebacker that he wants. I mean, That could be someone. A lot of the guys that could have been intriguing for Salah aren't here. I thought Michael Carter could have been a guy maybe, but they've traded him to the Eagles. I mean, they traded a lot of the Salah pieces off of this team. I wouldn't give anyone on the offensive line. I'm just trying to think of some guys that are a bit under the radar, but that actually was a really, really good question. Man, just do the 4-3 because we have nobody that fits a 3-4 scheme. You have some guys, especially on the defensive line. They definitely rehauled the linebacking core, and the 46. Yeah, bring Buddy Ryan back to run that one. Man, that is definitely something. And look, Bevel, if you can get Bevel the three of them, I think that would be a really great combination. And look, I think Reich is a Band-Aid. And here's the thing, keep it simple. I addressed this earlier in the show, and I'll stick with this. I think Kyler Murray to any team that's desperate for a quarterback is going to be a rumor. I just have a hard time, especially now with Frank Reich, who likes traditionally bigger quarterbacks that can operate their passers first. They operate from the pocket. He almost would rather have a smarter guy with less athleticism back there. I just don't see Kyler Murray for a couple of reasons. Even if he's cut, which, again, we haven't seen yet. Part of me wonders, too, do the Cardinals maybe keep him for another year as a bridge for like a Ty Simpson or someone, or to try to up his value for a trade? I just don't see the mesh between Aaron Glenn and the staff. It just feels like a square peg round hole. And look, to be fair, you bring in Kyler Murray, you bring in a dynamic player that, when healthy and when right, is a very dynamic quarterback in this league. But it's also a quarterback that's had work ethic issues, that's had issues staying healthy. And also, when a certain video game comes out in November, there tends to be a drop in performance. I'm just according to people in Arizona that I've talked about. So, I don't think so. They're friends. They played together with the Jets before. I think that's one of the reasons he brought him in, was because he feels this is someone he can trust. I don't think he's so the 3-4, Jawan Briggs was a nose tackle in Cleveland. He can also kick out the side. Harrison Phillips was a nose tackle as well, but at this point, I don't think he would be there. But look, there's guys like Peter Woods in the upcoming draft. There's some really big nose tackles that you can get to fill that slot. And look, I just don't think – I mean, Drones wants Justin Fields. I mean, he was a Pro Bowler. I mean, that just tell you how broken the Pro Bowl is. That not only Justin Fields got nominated, but he's like, nah, I'm good. I'm going to just stay here working out. And look, just because they run a base 4-3-4, they're still going to do a lot of Foreman down fronts. It's not like they're going to run the 3-4 75, 80%. It might be their base look for 50% of the snaps. And I mean, they're still going to have a lot of 4 down fronts. I mean, it's curious. I'm just trying to connect some of the tea leaves here, but, that's just what I'm saying. Look, Murray, again, I just once again don't think. And look, the options are not great. I'll admit it. I don't think the Jets are trading for Mac Jones. Another interesting report from 10 minutes ago is Jets offensive line coach Jeff Stoutland is leading the team. He's been the O-line coach since Chip Kelly arrived in 2013. I mean, I wouldn't make that's one I would. He's such a good offensive line coach. I mean, if Eric Glenn's feeling frisky, I mean, he's already gotten rid of so many coaches. But at this point, I think they're just going to try to fill out the rest of the staff. And I don't think offensive line was the issue last year, so I don't think they're going to move on. So, but I also think, too, it's – I just laugh too, like just some of the nonsense reports have come out. And look, the problem is where the Jets are. People can just go on any platform and pretty much say anything about this franchise, and people will think it's true. I mean, I do take a lot of pride in this channel. Like, I do a lot of research. I feel like I'm pretty honest with this team, and I tend to give the benefit of the doubt. One thing I also like to do is wait. Like with breaking news, I tend to wait a little bit because I want to hear some more stuff that comes out. And again, I get the idea of trying to break things first. I get it, but I'm one of those people. I'd like to give my analysis. I will say though, for Stoutland, again, he's decided to leave the Eagles. One place I'd keep an eye on would be the Giants for him, just because they're still looking for an O-line coach, and that'd be something just to see that happen. And look, it is definitely interesting. Stoutland's leaving Philadelphia. That staff, man, there's going to be an amazing documentary on the Eagles in a couple of years, because that is one of those teams. They are so talented but toxic. The way the town has maxed the toxicity there, but Stoutland just to leave the Eagles out of nowhere, I think it tells you what they think. Is, don't forget, they just hired an OC that no one really wanted. And you also look too, like I look across town, like Frank Reich and Matt Nagy, I feel are very much similar coaches. And the way that Matt Nagy's getting praised and Frank Reich's kind of getting dragged. And look, I get the way the Giants are covered versus the Jets, but again, they're older offensive coordinators. And I'll say this, at least Reich has made it work with multiple quarterbacks. Matt Nagy, the regression under him is astounding. And I also look too, he had Patrick Mahomes, and Patrick Mahomes has never looked worse than with Matt Nagy as his OC. And I understand Kansas City's losing a lot of talent, but man, it is just so frustrating. And yeah, no, I agree. I just was throwing that out there. I just thought that was an interesting point too. First year, probably not winning the offseason. Kev, I mean, I saw a great tweet the other day. It feels like the Jets, like this season, it's the offseason. We're down 21-0. So I get that. I get that. And look, I think that when I look at this, the process, like if the Jets had just simply at the end of the season just made the decision, look, we're going to talk with Tanner Engstrom, but we're going to try to bring a veteran presence to the offensive side. Aaron Glenn's decided that he was a defensive coordinator. He's going to call the plays, but bringing a young coach to come work with this team, I think we would have been okay. At least this is a normal process. This is a normal situation. But it is just, I think it's amazing that it took so long to get here. And look, there's such a long way to go. And look, another interesting coach to keep an eye on, Nathaniel Willingham is interviewing for the linebackers coach. He was the assistant last year. So look, the Jets are moving on their staff, which I guess is good. And look, I think Frank Reich, I mean, don't forget, this is a former Jet. I think he didn't have to come here. He's coming here to help Aaron Glenn. He's, I think, trying to help this organization that he played for once. And look, it's not going to be easy. We know this, but I just look at this hire and I say, look, they have a professional in the room. Do I worry again about the age? Yes. Do I worry about the creativity? Yes. The positives I look at is this is someone that's at least called plays. This is someone that's had experience in the NFL, winning in the NFL, and someone that, more importantly, was a former quarterback. And I mean, let's just say this. Like, think about the difference in one offseason. We go from Frank Reich, who's a former quarterback who can talk to the quarterback, where last year the primary quarterback coach was a former running back. I mean, it's almost, it just feels like this offense is an upgrade by default just because you have someone that's an adult in the room. And look, I also get to, if this doesn't move the needle for you, I get it. I understand this isn't an exciting. It's not like the Jets are getting an incredible offensive guru. It's not like they got a Mike McDowell or someone that you can see development head coach. I mean, Frank Reich, this is pretty much going to be probably it. Like, probably in a perfect world for the Jets, if they turn around, Aaron Glenn stays into 2027, which I know a lot of you just punch whatever you're watching the show on. Maybe then he turns the keys over to Greg Roman or Darrell Bevell in a year or two once they right the ship. But I just feel like with this team, they could have done a lot worse. He was the best candidate available. You saw the market for him. Again, I understand the concerns that it's not like everyone was beating down Frank Reich's doors to come back into the National Football League. But look, I think this is an upgrade in proxy. I also think, too, keep an eye on Jacoby Brissett, keep an eye on Kirk Cousins. These are guys that have relationship with Frank Reich to be the bridge. And look, this is going to be a long off season, and we're going to be here every step of the way. We're going to do full mock drafts. We're going to do breakdowns of the off season, and I'm also going to do a special video. And I really want you guys to let me know in the comments, even if you're joining us after the live. I'm going to do a top 5, not top 5, top 25 Jets busts over the last 25 years. I can also do the top 5 Jets draft picks over those 25 years. Let me know if you want both those. But let me know if you want them in a pre-produced format where I pre-produce the video. You don't see me on the camera. It's just a regularly produced video. Or if you'd rather have it live like this, we'll go through the 25, and then we get to your comments and thoughts afterward. Again, I don't necessarily have a preference, but I'm throwing this out to you guys. Let me know what you would like to see in terms of that format, because I do think that will be very important. Nate Jets. Actually, I think OC and D-line hiring, something to feel okay about. Yeah, it's nice you get a former Jet, and I do think you're going to see a lot more 3-4 fronts as well. I don't know. I think there's a lot of offseason, and I do think there's going to have to be a lot of talks. I will say this, though. Don't lose him for free. That is my simple answer. Like, you put the tag on him, and even if Brees doesn't want to be here, is refusing that he wants an extension or pay, and again, the Jets – can do something that no other team probably can. They can overpay for him to be the running back because they have so much cap space. If he doesn't want to be the highest paid running back in the league, then you tag him and trade him. The one thing I will say with Saquon, and this is what the Giants, I always killed them for with Saquon, was that you didn't get anything for him. If you got at least a draft pick and control where he went, like, let's throw this out there. Let's say Brees says, I'm refusing to come back to the Jets. There's no way I'm going to play for this team. I'm never going to sign a contract long-term. You can tag me, but I'm going to refuse to play. I'll take the fines on the chin. Just get me the F out of here. Okay, Brees, we'll tag you and we'll trade you. The Jets can control where he goes. What if they trade him to the NFC so they don't have to face him in the AFC? What if you call up Jerry Jones, you already have a relationship with? Hey, Jerry, do you want an exciting running back? We know the running back room for you is a little bit thin. Do you want a big star player? Maybe Jerry would give you a decent draft pick, like maybe a third rounder for Brees or a third plus. We know the Chiefs were thinking about it. They're on the fence. Again, I wouldn't give the Chiefs ammunition, but that's just an example of a team that was interested in Brees. Like, what if you call LaFleur in Arizona and say, hey, do you need a focal point for your offense? We're willing to trade Brees Hall. Will you give us a 3 and we'll give you like an exchange a 5th so the Jets get their 3rd round pick back? I mean, those are scenarios, but I would keep Brees. I would pay him what he wants, and basically and look, the reason I make the Brissett connection because he played for Reich in Indianapolis and they had success together. So that's why I'm looking at that. And again, I don't get Fields is done with the Jets. Like, let's just call it as it is. I would love Bart Scott to be the linebacker coach. It doesn't seem like he's interested. Again, Bart is living a great life right now. If he wants to get into coaching, I think he'd be a good coach, but he's got multiple radio programs. He's multiple television programs. I think he likes what he's doing. He's always been a guy that loves the camera. He's always been great in front of it. He's always had great insight. So I just don't see that happening. And again, I mean, we'll have more live shows. Don't worry. Make sure to like and subscribe. Addison. Tassie. Is that for a player or something? Let me know. So, all right. Let's see about losing. Yeah, I'm still not over that. I'm more upset about losing T.S. than P, if I'm honest, Kev. So, I mean, the Mets have at least made it up to me. I don't think the Jets are going to have that type of offseason. So, let's see. Do we get Kenny Walker if Brees walks? Uh, I don't know. I'm curious to see. The other thing too with why I'm also keen Brees, it's another hole you have to fill. It's just another hole that I don't want this team to fill. And I also agree with Kev. I don't I don't think uh, Bart's also going to jump on the ship when sinking. And look, with P, I think the way they handled the contract, especially with how hard they went after other free agents, was a bit frustrating. But it's clear that in the long term plan, they weren't committed. I mean, you look even last year, it was basically a 1-year contract. I think they could have handled it better with Pete, but I do think that they have shown what type of lineup they want. They want guys in this lineup that are higher on base players, that are hit for a higher average, that are going to be more on base and be able to drive in runs with runners on. And as great as Pete is, and as great as Jeff, and you look at those lineups and Brandon Nimmo, they were very streaky hitters. And I think the Mets added some more consistent bats in that lineup. Um, yeah, I just it doesn't make sense to move off of Brees. It's just another hole you have to fill. And let's say, and again, he didn't have a great year last year. Like, if you really don't love Brees, what if you do this? You get him on a multi-year contract or a tag. He has an unbelievable season, and you decide, you know what, we've gotten the most out of him. Let's trade him. Then you tag him and trade him again. I mean, it's just another hole. And look, I think especially one thing that would help, and this is why I think Greg Roman's such a name. Greg Roman also had a really raw deal last year. And I do think he might have kept his job if Mike McDaniel wasn't on the board for free agents, for coaches. I mean, Greg Roman, we know his strength is the run game. And you talk about last year, the Chargers lost their 2 great tackles early in the season. And you saw Mekhi Becton once again become a pumpkin when you don't have a great O-line coach and a great O-line like you did in the Eagles. And it's like, hey, Mekhi, you'll have to get that one guy. I mean, I think that with Roman, you could design more run plays. You can design more interesting routes for Brees. And that's part of the reason, too, where if you could get Greg Roman on the staff and have him talk to Brees and talk about the different ways he could be implemented, and even Frank Reich, maybe Frank Reich finally goes to Brees and does something we've all been saying, hey, Brees, I don't want you carrying the ball 20, 25 times a game. I want to utilize you as a receiver. You're our team's second best pass catcher. My goal is to use you like Christian McCaffrey. I'm going to have you maybe touch the ball as a running back 12 to 13 times, but I want to manufacture 8 to 9 touches through the passing game or through quick sweeps. Like, I just feel like that is going to be someone more professional. Because again, last year, how many times were we screaming, this team doesn't know how to use Brees? This is a team that isn't creative with their play calling. And look, I'm not saying Frank Reich is the most professional play caller, but at least it's someone that's done it. And it's someone that you would hope can put people in the right position. Again, comments, super chat to jump to the front of the line. Let's see. I don't know if it's debunked. Again, the one thing, keep it simple, I just talked about. They were interviewing, who was it? There was something on X. I'm trying to see who it was, but it's reported they were interviewing a different linebacker coach. So I'm just trying to remember who it was. But it just doesn't seem like he's the guy that they're interested in interviewing right now. And look, I just don't know. I just don't see a scenario where Bart wants to leave his job. I just don't. Last about the Mets. Stearns need to have a foresight to trade P and Diaz last year and get future. I mean, look, they're in a playoff race. They at the time of the trade deadline, they were hopefully adding pieces. I mean, that's look. I'm more frustrated with how they handled Diaz, but look, I think that the Mets in a way have pivoted where I think the rotation's better. They have a true number one starter. I think they have a great prospect system and system that they've never had, which shows that they have the ability to not only trade for a player, but they still have some young pieces. Carson Bench, I think, is going to get an opportunity in left. And look, I think it'll be a different look Met team, but I still think it'll be a good team. I don't think they obviously won't be a favorite for the pennant, but do I think they can compete? and be a really good team? And also, do I like that Nolan McLean's now in the number 2 spot? So I do think the Mets, again, I don't love all the Stearns moves, but I do think they have pivoted well this offseason. Much as I can, he's played well below expectations. And look, part of that is he hasn't had a quarterback. The one reason I would maybe trade Brees, and I don't want to trade him just to trade him. I would say if Brees Hall, again, like we talk about the quote Solomope, if he's moping around and basically is just a bad attitude in that locker room and he's not bought in, then it might be an addition by subtraction. But the one thing I would say is you can't just let him walk out the door. Like it's going to be hard enough if Brees goes to another team being good. But the thing I think that stung Giant fans was not only who he went to, but the fact that they didn't get anything for him. And look, you're not going to get a ton. You're maybe going to get a 3rd round pick. Like if Darren Muji wants to get creative, what I would try to do is try to acquire another player with Brees in a trade. I wouldn't just trade him for an asset, which is basically you're hoping to find someone in the draft. What I would try to do, and again, I'm not in favor of trading Brees. I'm going to preface this by saying it's just adding another hole to this team and another position you have to bring in. But I would, and again, I really Quinn, I think it's just going to be Nagy just because he's got the quarterbacks. We know what their quarterback situation is. We have no idea what the Jets is. With Brees, I would be, if I was trading him, again, which I am not in favor of, I would try to be getting a piece back. Like Brees in a pick for, let's say, a receiver. Brees in a pick or Brees for a really good defensive piece. Like you need to get something tangible back for him. And again, you're not probably going to get, it's not Madden. You're not going to get like a quarterback or anything, but maybe there's a really good player out there or a receiver that you really like. And maybe there's a team with a bunch of great receivers. They know they can't pay them all, but they could add Brees Hall. Maybe they look in and say, well, we can't resign all these receivers. Maybe we can add Brees. And look, there's teams that also want splashy moves. Like you've already made a move with Dallas. Dallas needs addition on that offense. Could you get, like, is there a receiver on the Cowboys that you really like? Is there a defensive or 2 defensive players you really like on the Cowboys? I mean, I'm just, again, spitballing. And I'm not saying you're going to get fair value, but this is also what I would look at. Pick 33 is a hot ticket. Could trade down from 33. I don't know about that. So here's the problem with the future one. I don't think you're getting a future one for 33. You can maybe get one with 16. Here's the problem, though. We all know next year is going to be a really great draft. If anything, teams are going to be trying to get assets in next year's draft, not parting with them. I mean, the fact that the Jets have 3 first-round picks in 2027 is very enticing. I just get the feeling, and again, this is just me, that we're going to see a lot of trades within this draft, but the one thing a lot of teams are going to be looking for is picks in next year's draft. And this staff right now can't just afford to – they already got 4 key assets. They have 3 ones next year and a 2. They're not going to just start parting or just kicking assets down the road for next year because they might not have them. They might just give them to the next head coach. So 33 to me is a really good spot to trade down. So let's play a little scenario, keep it simple. Let's say the Jets zoom in on Garrett Nussmeier as the quarterback they want, okay? And they know based on their research, based on the way other teams have talked about it, he's going to be either early day 3, but maybe late day 2. But again, the Jets only have 33 and 44. The Jets, let's say, move back and gain a 3rd-round pick that they can then use to get Garrett Nussmeier, but they still get good players. And look, 33 is an enticing spot too, because there's going to be at least one or two teams where, because again, I think there's a stat that 33 is the most traded pick in draft history, because it's at a point in the draft where there's going to be a player or two on someone's board that they thought was a top 20 player in this draft, maybe even a top 15 that's sitting there. And they're saying, we cannot pass up this value. The other thing that 33 is interesting too is it's after first round. You have a full day. So you have a full night and a full day to work with your staffs, work with your teams to analyze your board, regroup, and say, these are the prospects we really like. And if you're the Jets, you're probably fielding not one, but multiple calls for 33. Hey, we really like this player. Hey, we really want to get up there. Hey, we really want this guy. Hey, we really want to do this. And I do think they're going to wheel and deal. And I talked about this earlier because I see your other question. Keep it simple. I do think they're going to trade I would make a guess one or two picks at least for another player. I think that that's going to be a strategy. And I think, again, it's a strategy that worked for them. I would love to trade out a two cap, but again, who's coming up? There's not like that special player. And if there really was that special player, the Jets would just draft it. Like, I don't see and this is part of the reason I look at the board. I just don't see a guy right now where I'm like, okay, I easily can see this happening or X, Y, and Z happening. I just don't see that scenario. I just look at right now, when I look at the board, for 33, is there a scenario let's say a Colton Hood from Tennessee's in that range and some team's desperate for a corner? Do they come up? Or maybe there's a bunch of D tackles that the Jets that they can move up. Or maybe Jadarian Price, a team really wants that running back as a final piece so they can move up in that scenario. There's so many different scenarios at 33 in order for a team to come up. But I just look at the top of this draft, and it's just tough because I think a lot of teams like Alvaro Reese, but I don't think anyone's coming up to get him at 2. I don't think anyone's coming up to get Caleb Downs at 2. I mean, I don't think a team's going to pick Jeremiah Love in the top 5. I just don't see that player unless maybe some team falls in love with Jordan Tyson, or the Giants just find this offensive tackle that they don't want, that they are praying doesn't go to Arizona, and they call up they want let's say Fanu, or they want Mayaga for a tackle. So I would love to trade out of 2. That would be my ideal scenario. The hard part is I just don't see that guy, that team's going to come up. And look, the problem is it might be Ty Simpson. But then if you're the Jets, are you willing to move out of number 2, let a team pick Ty Simpson, and then in a year or two, look back and say, we had that pick, we could have picked that quarterback, and you didn't? You look last year. I think one of the big things, Woody Johnson in his Florida meeting was talking with Aaron Glenn. I think one of the big things had to come up with, guys, you need to explain something to me. You brought in Tyler Shuck for all these meetings. We could have had him at some point. You didn't go and do it. And what did you not see in Jackson Dart? Because he was on for the board. You could have traded back into round 1 to get him. He looks like a franchise quarterback. And these are questions the owners are going to have. What did you see or what did you not see? And I think that's a big reason why in Minnesota they fired their GM, because they said, wait, we had Sam Darnold in this building, but you decided not to keep him. And you decided to let him go to Seattle, who's going to the Super Bowl. Now, not only is he going to the Super Bowl, but now we have another team we have to contend with if we want to get to the Super Bowl. And it's with the guy we had. So I just look at this scenario and I just look at it and I go, okay, I just don't see a team coming up the board. I like Arvell Reese. I like Ruben Bain. I think a lot of these teams are going to like these players. The one player that I could see, and again, I don't see it now. I think it's a long process, but every year we see that rise of a quarterback, and especially in such a thin quarterback class, does Ty Simpson, because again, it takes one. Like, all it takes is pick number 3. The Cardinals cannot have to eat that Kyler Murray contract. They get out of it, but they can't afford a quarterback. They have Jacoby Brissett in house. What if they just decide, you know what? We got the veteran. I'm an offensive-minded head coach. I want to pick my quarterback. I don't know where we're going to be picking next year because I'm confident in myself. Why don't I pick Ty Simpson at number 3? You know what? I have a long runway. It's like that could be a scenario. I mean, is it the crazy, especially in a draft where there's like 12 really good players, but if you're like the Cardinals, for example, at 3, do they just say, you know what? We might as well just take the quarterback and then try to build around him. I don't think they have the pieces right now to really make it work with the quarterback. But Arizona might say, look, we got the 3rd pick. I like Ty Simpson. Let's just go get him. Even Cleveland at 6. What if the owner just says, you know what? I want to draft another quarterback. I don't love Shadur. I don't love, the quarterbacks we picked last year. We have multiple picks. We have the 24th pick in this draft. Why don't we just take Ty Simpson? That's the problem with our team is the quarterback. I mean, could they talk themselves into it? Could Miami at 11 talk themselves into Ty Simpson? Because they're going to move on from Tua. Do they love Quinn Ewers or Zach Wilson? I mean, here's one. What about the Rams at 13? They got the 13th pick because of the trade at the Falcons last year. Maybe Sean McVay says, Matthew Stafford's getting up there. Maybe it's smart to draft his replacement, have him sit behind Stafford for a year or two, so I don't skip a beat. Like, this is something we'll talk about. And right now, Ty Simpson probably is a high 2nd-round pick at this point. But I think once we get through the combine and the offseason and we see how little there is in the veteran quarterback market, and we start getting to this point, like the one player I think that might potentially move the needle is Ty Simpson. And if he's going to move the needle at number 2, then the question is, why aren't you going to take him? Like, that's the one player in the draft that I could see a team trading up for 2. I just don't see any other team really coming up there. And look, there's no way. I'm going to nip this in the butt right now. Kubiak is not leaving Seattle if he doesn't have an idea he's taking Fernando Mendoza. And that was the bigger reason I wanted Dante Moore to come out, is I wanted to have that option, because there was a world where I'm saying, you know what? Maybe Tom Brady or whoever they brought in, like, hey, you know what? We think Mendoza is going to be really good, but is he going to be better than Mahomes or Justin Herbert or Bo Nix? Maybe, but we think Moore has a chance to be up there with them. And look, I just look at this and I know it's a risk. And I do think there is a world where they pick a quarterback in this draft. And maybe they have to trade up from 16 to do it. But there's a world where, and I've said this earlier as I wrap up the video, there is a world where I just look at, I'm not trading for, I think about it. I'd rather trade for like a Tanner McKee or something, especially for a quarterback. If you're the Jets, like I've said this in this show, like what will sell to this fan base to give Aaron Glenn more time and what will sell Woody, I think it's that you have to find the quarterback. And maybe they find it with Ty Simpson and they look at it and say, look, we're going to put Simpson on the bench until he's ready. Like, there is a scenario. I could see this. And I know this is a better defensive draft. But maybe the Jets look at it and say, you know what? We'll take Simpson at 2 to guarantee that we're not going to get jumped at 16, because we know there's a team like the Steelers that'll do what the Patriots did and move up right in front of us at 16. Let's just make sure we get our quarterback. And then at 16, we'll take the best wide receiver available. Maybe it's a Mekhi Lemon. Maybe Carnell Tate drops to 16. And then we look at it and go, you know what? We got picks 33 and 44. Let's take the 2 best defensive players at that point. Or heck, maybe they trade back and just gain assets. Because like I said to start this show, the one path to me seeing Aaron Glenn even having a snowball chance in HE double hockey sticks and keeping his job is he's got to sell Woody. I got the quarterback. I just need to fill out the rest of this defense. Like, the Jets defense still has some talent on it. Do they address it in free agency? Maybe they get some nice starting caliber pieces on the defense. Not great, but serviceable, or even just good depth pieces. And it gets to the point, like, what's going to save Aaron Glenn's job very simply is this. If they have the quarterback and the offense is trending upward and it looks like the Jets are moving in the right direction, that's going to help him keep his job. If the defense, even the defense, it's 16th or 15th in the league. They have a massive turnaround. But the offense looks rudderless. They don't have a quarterback. They don't have a plan at the quarterback position. Boy's going to say, look, guys, I got 3 get-out-of-jail-free cards, and they're called the first-round picks. I'm going to get an offensive coach and draft my quarterback. So, and look, I don't love the experience, and I don't love the market, but it's clear the Jets' plan to me is this. They're going to get a veteran, whether it's a trade, whether it's free agency, and they're going to draft a kid. It could be Simpson in the first round, could be Nussmeier on day 2, could be Drew Aller on day 3. I think that the Jets are leaking their plan out. And look, it's not a plan I think a lot of us are confident in. I think we still are kind of on this coaching offseason and just bringing in Frank Reich. But look, they brought in adults. I think that we have to see how the rest of the staff ends up. And look, there's going to be many checkpoints. We're coming to the end of the first one, which is hiring the staff. The next big one's going to be free agency. If they can convince people to come on the Titanic, that's going to say a little something about this coaching staff. But if they're not going to get any, then it shifts to the draft and how they're going to improve the roster. I mean, there's a long way to go, and we'll have plenty of mock drafts. We'll go through some Jets history this offseason, but there's a lot to talk about. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss the latest Rich Sports Talk. Make sure to follow us wherever social media is available, and you can check us out wherever podcasts are available. I'm your host, Nolan Rich. Until next time, this has been Rich Sports.